Well, an astrophysicist died and arrived at the pearly gates. And St. Peter smiled and warmly said, "We've been expecting you." Bewildered, the scientist replied, "There must be a mistake. I'm an atheist, and I spent my career writing books proving God does not exist. I proved the universe expanded from a singularity, that physics governs everything. The cosmos doesn't need a creator. So why am I here?" And St. Peter chuckled as he walked him through the gates. "Oh, we know about all your books. God absolutely loved them." And just then God walked up and hugged the scientist. "Welcome home, doctor. I wanted to personally thank you. Your research on the curvature of space-time was breathtaking." And the scientist responded, I don't understand. Aren't you angry? I told the world you weren't real." And God warmly smiled. "Angry, heavens no. For centuries, folks have treated me like a magician who pulls stardust out of a hat, but you took the time to try and figure stardust out. I'm thrilled someone appreciated the process."
Christopher Webb.
I like that story. Science isn't scorned for finding details in creation, and scientists aren't evil for finding them. Wrong conclusions about God don't affect entrance to heaven. God loves good work and good science and isn't vain about getting credit, and God exists regardless of science concluding otherwise. Israel, the name given to Jacob in our lesson that Tony read so nicely, the name means one who struggles with God. And we all struggle on many levels with the concept of God. Accepting God's existence is especially hard these days when many, often including scientists, conclude there's no God. And so suggest God's an unreasonable, even a primitive or childish notion. And there's an irony in that, since most of humankind has reasoned through most of history that there is a God. And physicists arguably even have proof God exists. But in fairness, identifying proof of God can be difficult, since academic scientists seem to have a penchant for denying God's existence. And it's usually a fundamentalist version of God they deny, which ironically is the version of God many theologians have not understood God to be. Usually the scientists' denials go something like, "I based my conclusions on empirical evidence, and no one has ever provided empirical evidence of an all-powerful, supernatural, man-like being who meddles in the affairs of humans and favors certain religious people. So I can only conclude there's no such thing." End of discussion. But Rev. Scott, you said physicists arguably even have proof God exists. What proof are you talking about? Science has acquired evidence that gives humanity maybe significant knowledge relating to 4%. 4% of what so far has been calculated to exist in the universe. Modern science studies the fundamental forces out there that we know exist, but scientific formulas fail to explain the origins of fundamental forces. Yet logic and experience and the very existence of things evidences it is at least more likely than not there's a creative and sustaining force, a greater than, that throughout history most humans have in one way or another named God. You see, the majority of responses to experience of existence and the awe and the wonder in it have included logical conclusions that something bigger than us created all of this. Indeed, most humans have had a sense of greater than awesomeness, a sense of deep connection to it, a sense of deep gratitude for it. And there have been quests to seek more connections to it and express gratitude for it, leading to rituals and worship and formation of communities on similar quests in similar ways, creating this religion, that religion. Creation and what created it and sustained it have long been revered as both greater than us and connected to us. And humans have long appreciated and longed for more of the connection to creation and what created and sustains it. What the source exactly is beyond our knowledge, probably even our comprehension, but logically that source seems more likely than not to exist. And the time-honored name for the creating and sustaining source has been God. Some have considered creation points to multiple deities as the source. Some a singular deity. Some consider the deity to have set the universe in motion and then left. Some consider the deity a being beyond the universe. Some consider the universe itself the deity. Some consider the deity the universe plus something more. One way or another, most of humanity has reasoned that creation and its complexity and the awe, wonder, and love we experience evidence a creative and sustaining being superior to us. The proof is the complexity, the awe, the wonder, and the love, and the very existence of creation, including all the forces that science studies. All of it allows a reasonable conclusion that logically it had to have a cause. There could be nothing at all. There could be nothing. But we have evidence there is something. And why something, not nothing, leads to consider the everyday evidence that nothing comes from nothing. Something comes from something. The scientific law of conservation of matter and energy tell us that. Matter and energy cannot appear out of nothing or disappear into nothing. That law reflects a basic logic humans have long known, that existing things are created and sustained. That's why humanity long concluded there's a creative force greater than us. We even seem to know it intuitively. John Calvin called it sensus divinitatis, which means sense of the divine. And some in science may not give credence to this innate sense or to thousands of years of logic, because presently science calculations for material things cannot define God. Ironically, science gives placeholder names to other things it can't figure out, like dark matter and dark energy. Lately, there's even a cutting-edge science that claims there's about a 50-50 chance reality is a simulation run by a coder. That sure sounds like a godlike cause that many scientists will reject naming God that cause. And here's the thing, the Bible doesn't actually define the creative force, God. The best description of God may be the name Moses reportedly heard from the burning bush. I am that I am. That's the name God gives Moses for God. I am that I am. God is. And that reflects what humans have known and experienced for eons. Creation is something and full of some things, all of which came from something. Moreover, we innately sense a divinity as well as a connection to creation and that which created it. And we know we are not the creative source. Again, throughout history, most name the creative source God. Many today would rather deny there's even a creative force until they can calculate it. There's no I am, just a blank mystery at the end of an equation to solve. Even though there are fantastical science theories like we're in a simulation and there's a coder, the idea of God is often dismissed as too fantastical. This, despite evidences of forces and things which allow logical inferences that there's a cause of the causes which create and sustain creation. Despite a history of most of humanity inferring there's a source, a creator in one respect or another, very oddly, in the age of reason, to many that source and causation may not reasonably be named God anymore. Nonetheless, the proof remains. Something exists, and something always comes from something. The inference of a creator may not be the only conclusion, but it is a reasonable conclusion. Science, for all its amazing work and advancement, cannot explain the source or how complexity of life fell into place, or even who put it together, and why fundamental forces came into being and continue to exist. Let's take a fundamental force that science cannot explain at all because it does not seem to come from matter. It's a force we've all had proof of since we were children. Consciousness. All of us have long been subjectively aware of our existence, others' existence, and creation's existence, and that force guides our responses for all existence that we encounter. Science cannot prove where consciousness comes from or what keeps it going, but it is undeniably present and continuously part of healthy life. We exist and are aware of it and respond to that existence. Consciousness is not a material thing and cannot be made from material things. Like God, science cannot calculate consciousness, yet clearly it exists. Our somethingness, this somethingness we wake up to every day, came from something. The complexity of consciousness and our amazing human bodies allow logical inferences, and one is that happenstance is unlikely to have caused the likes of us. Even with 4 million years of life on Earth, it makes very little sense. Random mutations, even trillions of them, led to consciousness, and I would even argue to human bodies. I'm not saying evolution didn't happen. I am saying it's not likely it led to us by happenstance without a creative force. The human hand alone is too amazing to have just fallen into place. And here's the way I look at it. If I was alone in this room and I tossed a bag of blocks on the floor and took another bag of blocks and stacked them up in neat patterns, and then I let folks in and asked which set was randomly thrown and which was not, the answer would be easily inferred. We recognize randomness, evidence is randomness. We recognize organization, evidence is organizing, and organizing evidences an organizing force. We'd all be aware a creative force organizes. Someone stacked the blocks. And that awareness comes through consciousness, a power science doesn't understand and can't trace to material sources or one of its accepted forces. We know it exists. We know it's complex, and logically it didn't arrive or survive by happenstance. Reason suggests a force caused and sustains it. Even if there were trillions of causes, it makes no sense blocks would land in neat stacked patterns. And that's just with simple blocks. Does it make sense? A Big Bang 14 million years ago and trillions of random alterations since formed the vast complexity of the cosmos. Even this planet, Earth, and all it contains cannot just happen. It's not logical. But it makes sense 14 million years and trillions of creative force alterations could form the complexity of the world, the universe. With awareness, humans have explored creation. And science in our lifetime has mostly postulated creation started with a Big Bang. But science has no idea where the Big Bang came from. And a similar lack of knowledge exists for the forces included in the acceleration and the material coming out of the Big Bang. Like consciousness, scientifically, the ultimate source remains undetermined, and no formula has yet been developed that has calculated it. What we do know is there is something, and that something comes from something. Now, science is amazing and taught us much about material things, but it has not come close to determining the origin of Big Bang or matter or fundamental forces coming out of it, like gravity or space-time or atomic connectivity or electromagnetism, let alone consciousness. And look, I'm not anti-science. I am really not. I love science. And I'm also not anti-atheist. Like the story I started the sermon with, I do not think God judges whether a person believes this or that about God. What matters is how we behave. What troubles me are suggestions that the existence of a creative force, God, lacks reason or proof or is childish. And ironically, that condescension exists even though some of the greatest minds in science reason some sort of God exists. Something comes from something. It's not unscientific. In the 16th century, the father of modern science, Galileo, suggested the laws of nature are written by the hand of God in the language of mathematics. In the 18th century, Sir Isaac Newton reasoned, quote, "This most beautiful system of the sun, planets, and comets could only proceed from the counsel and dominion of an intelligent being. This being governs all things, not as the soul of the world, but as Lord over it all," end quote. Albert Einstein, the preeminent scientist of the past 100+ years, reasoned from the vast evidence he found that, quote, "Everyone who is seriously involved in the pursuit of science becomes convinced that a spirit is manifest in the laws of the universe, a spirit vastly superior to that of man," end quote. In the 21st century, Dr. Brian Kobilka, Nobel Prize laureate in chemistry, noted that his intricate molecular work tracking down cell receptors deeply harmonized with his faith, and noted both science and religion can point us to God. And I'm good with that. And I think God is too. No one has to believe God exists, but it's certainly reasonable and logical to believe God exists. Most of humankind has. And we can too. Someone once noted that the first gulp from the glass of natural science will turn you into an atheist. But at the bottom of the glass, God is waiting for you.